What's up, guys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. We just got over here to the shop. We're at Randy's. We're gonna be working on this hot rod a little bit. This thing is kicking our tail, and it's really kicking it bad. So we got some work to do. We created a whole to-do list. We got some stuff to do before this coming weekend. We will be at Mike Hill's Races, the plan at Darlington. Friday they're doing open 28s, I think, but Saturday they're doing all steel, all glass. So that's going to be a good time. So if y'all are in the area, it's going to be August 18th and 19th, Darlington Dragway. It's going to be a good time. Hopefully y'all come out and see us, hang out with us. It's going to be fun. Nighttime race, radials. It's going to be, hopefully we'll see the sun coming up again on the way home like we did last time. All right, guys, check it out. If y'all want to support the channel, go hit up turbojohnracing.com. Grab yourself some hats and t-shirts. I appreciate it, guys. All right, guys, so we got a pretty long list of things to do tonight. We're going to get started on it. Brian's going to be down here a little bit later. Courtney may end up coming over and helping as well. So one of the things, we can't make this thing work. Now, when we're at Darlington, the car works, but the track is really good. And so when the track is really good, it's easy to make anything work. So we got some work to do. This is our to-do list, what we got to get done. Fix starting issue. We've got a loose wire or something happening. We got a new battery coming as well. Occasionally, he'll hit the button and he'll press it and it's like it just loses connection. So we got to figure out what's happening with that. It has not bit us yet. At some point, if we don't get it fixed, the car is not going to start though. And of course, it's going to be right in when we're about to have a final or we're about to be in a race. So, and it's only randomly doing it. So we got to figure out what that is. We got to weld a jack point on the rear end. When Jason moved the anti-roll bar to the bottom of the rear end, we've got enough room to we can get the jack pad like half on, but I'm not comfortable with that when we start taking the jack up really high because sometimes the jack will slide around. So I'm gonna get them to weld a point on the bottom of that so we'll be good to get there. This is what we're gonna focus on today, is measuring and plotting the rear end, and then we're gonna loosen the shocks up completely and make sure we ain't got no binding anywhere with the rear end so that it can go all the way up and it can come all the way down. And then we need to make another timing point on the driver's side. Looking at the data log that we had last time when we were at the track, we made 46 pounds of boost with that Jose forced induction 122 millimeter turbo. That's a lot of boost, guys, and we didn't have a lot of dome pressure on it. So this thing is going to make a lot more power now, I think. But the mile per hour that it run for that what we had, I don't know that our timing is still correct. If y'all remember, I'll show y'all in a few minutes why we're going to change that. Because on this side, when Jason built the headers and the new turbo kit, he had to move the oil tank inboard. And so we just don't have a direct line of sight for the actual timing pointer. So we're gonna have to make another one on the other side of the motor so that we can actually see exactly what the timing is. All right, guys, here we go. So let's start out. We're going to focus on the suspension. I'm going to crawl up under there and we're going to measure this thing out, and I'm going to show you how I plot it out. So one of the things I like to do is draw. I'm not very good here at drawing, but I like to make a drawing of what we've got here. So this right here is going to be our lower bar. And generally you want this thing to be flat to uphill. Top bar is going down. The front of the car is this way. So just, we'll write that out there, front, and then this is the rear of the car. So this will be looking at these points from the actual location from like the passenger side, if you were looking at it from over here on the side. So, you know, you want to get somebody in the car that is the same weight because this thing does settle. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go loosen up the shocks, and then I'm going to start measuring. Now the car is kind of low, so Courtney had built him some blocks, and so we may end up having to put it on these blocks. I'm gonna try to crawl up under there and see if I can get to all the points. Of course, it's easier if it's up a little bit higher. If you're gonna put it up on blocks, what you have to do is subtract the height of the block. So this block is pretty tall, so we would just measure it, and then we would measure and deduct that. So let's crawl up under there real fast and get these measurements. The measurements you're going to want to get here, there's a few things you're going to want to do. You're going to want the length of the bottom bar, the total length of the bottom bar, the total length of the top bar. So that's something you have to measure as well. And you want to get this thing as close as you can, of course, because the further you are off on your your points, the more of a problem it's going to be as far as the actual numbers. It's going to give us our instant center location. So what you do is where these lines meet out here in that point, that will be a certain height off the ground. It'll be a certain distance from the back, and it'll be a certain anti-squat percentage. Basically, the point from the bottom of the tire up through the instant center, you draw an imaginary line through that. And if your instant center point is below that line that goes up, then you've got less than 100% anti-squat, the car will squat. And then if you're above it, then that's what radial cars do, and the car separates on the back. So it completely depends on, you know, where you're at in relation to that line. And so, you know, like I was saying, you don't know exactly where the center of gravity is. So, you know, if you're really close on 100%, you could be a little bit above it or a little bit below it based on that actual instant center of height, or the actual center of gravity height. So it could be a little misleading. Okay, let's crawl up under there real fast and measure these. All right, guys, so it's a little tight on the ground with it being so low, so we decided to use these blocks. These blocks are 16.5 inches tall, so we'll just take those points out of our measurement. Now, something that is interesting, something very interesting. So the rear end is hanging now, right? So the rear end is hanging, so the shocks are what's holding the rear end in this position. And so we let it drop and get about 3 fingers in there. Then on this other side, there's my 3 fingers. And so the rear, something is happening. I don't know if I've ever even checked this on this car. But so we're trying to run this thing so it separates fully, right? So if you're not trying to make it separate fully, this may not be an issue. But if you're trying to make it separate fully, then if one side tops out faster than the other, or doesn't have as much travel, so because you start at a static ride height, and so if it pops up in the back and then it pops sideways, that could be an issue. So now what controls this is the shocks where they're mounted to the rear end. So basically, like right here, so we're in the third hole here, and we're in the third hole here. So that should be the same. Now these holes are spaced, we'd have to measure it, but they're either 1/2 or 3/4 inch apart. So I guess we can stagger that, because we want it to have the same stroke on each shock. If I'm thinking about this correctly, guys, we need to move this. That is an issue. All right, guys, so we've been messing with this thing, and it's kicking our butt here. So I got off the phone with Jason Braswell. I was talking to him a little bit. You know, we went through all the motions, making sure nothing was binding, and it didn't feel like anything was binding. But so what we just done is we took this shock bracket loose, and we were going to move on the shock bracket itself. And so we actually moved this one up to this hole, and then suddenly it dropped real far down. So now what we're thinking is happening, see, we got this top bolt in. The bottom bolt will absolutely not go in at this point. I think the shock is binding on this. See how it's at a really steep angle? I think the shock needs to come out some more so that it's not going to, I think that's what's binding. I mean, that's what's making sense is we got this thing, the angle of this is peaked and it's binding up. So we're going to take this off real fast, and then we're going to put some more spacers in this and see if we can get it to come out. And then once we do that, then we'll measure the actual control arms to see what the instant center anti-squat is. 62 and 3/4 to the beating box. 62 and 3/4. All right, guys, so we're scratching our heads here. We got some issues, and we don't understand exactly what's happening. Courtney came over to help us, lend us a hand, too. Y'all go check out his YouTube channel, The Paint and Paper Hustle. He's messing with that coyote. Let me step way back here. So the body is pretty much square on the lift. Can y'all see the difference? The driver's side tire is hanging down an inch lower than the right side. When you measure everything, like off the frame, off of the rear end and the frame, they're pretty close, but all the way at the outside edge it is not even close. And if you measure from here, from the B-lock to the fender well, there's an inch difference. Now, what was weird, what we thought was happening is I thought we were getting some binding here at the angle, because we actually moved this up one hole, and we're going to do this again in a minute, but we moved this up one hole, which is 3/4 of an inch, and that should have, in theory, got it square, but it ended up dropping this side like 1.75 inches. So I don't understand exactly what's happening. We still hadn't even got into the part where we're trying to measure. We hadn't even got to the point where we're measuring the doggone instance interlocation, which we know that's going to have to change. The bottom bar is pointing downhill when it's on those blocks, but we got to get the rear end straight first, because if you think about it, if that rear end, the way that is, this side's topping out before this side, it will never top out, and then that's got to unsettle the car. So we got to figure out what's going on here. We did space these out a little bit to make sure they're not binding. I don't know, we may end up spacing them out just a little bit more, because you can see, I mean, it gets close, but that right there is still, that's mostly straight, so that's not hitting or anything. So we think we're kind of close on that. When you measure it from like here to the frame rail, I mean, Courtney was measuring that, and it was really, really close. Out on the outside fenders, it looks a little bit different, but you know, Randy and Courtney also reminded me this car is being wrecked over here in this quarter, so we're measuring from Bondo over here on this side. Oh, is the Bondo on the other quarter too?
I showed it all in my video.
Oh, did you?
I showed all the body filler in my video.
Well, I mean, that's part of a race car.
We had to do to get back on the track.
It'd be faster if it didn't have so much body filler, though.
Everybody said that we shouldn't even have did what we did.
Oh.
We should have said it.
Well, see, it's fine. We seeing in it. So we're going to drop it back down on the stands real fast, crawl up under there, and measure these points. And then we'll show you the calculations real fast on the anti-swap, what we're going to probably change. All right, guys, here is, got it on scales as well. This is the weight of the car with no driver. So the cross 50-50 is perfect, 2620. But let's look at the percentages without Randy in it. So the front is 58.3% right now, and the rear is 41.65%. So he's going to jump in there real fast. Now, Randy weighs about 300 pounds, but he actually will make it way more in the back, because he is, you know, when you look at him in relation to the car, he's back. So let's look at how much he's going to change it. All right, guys, Randy's crawling in. That was sliding. That was a challenge. He is not going to be able to get out of the car. There is no room between the door. We're going to have to, we'll leave him here overnight. He's just sleeping in the race car tonight. All right, guys, so Randy's car, man, this thing's a beast. What does it weigh now? Do you remember? No, it ain't that much of a beast. 29.45. Now, you don't have your jacket. You don't have your fire suit. So that's probably, what, 10 pounds-ish? He said more than that. So it actually looks pretty good. The left rear is 670, right rear is 600. The left front, you got 25 pounds in the rear. Okay. So right now, percentage-wise, $56.87% on the nose. So 57% on the nose. That's one of the problems. I mean, with radials, I mean, that's one of the things you have to be careful of. I mean, radials has got to have some weight on the nose, but if you get too much on the nose, then it makes it tricky to get on and off. Hey, let's go get some measurements real fast under the back of the car. All right, guys, so Courtney climbed up under there and got us some measurements. So now the scale height is 19.25. So we do have to go get the cam shaft height measurement while it's on the block, so the hood's gonna have to come off real fast. But basically, this is the bar angle. So the back of the car, the lower bar is going downhill a little bit more than an inch. And then the top bar has got some really good rake in it. So we're gonna calculate this out real fast. Basically, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all these numbers, I'm gonna draw another one down here and just do math. So 37.5 minus 19.25, and then we'll show you those numbers. All right, guys, so here's the numbers now. So this has got 129%, 28.5 inches long, and 6.5 inches high. So that is generally not going to work for a radial. So these hole measurements, you can move 3/4 of an inch. So we can move 3/4 inch up that way, 3/4 inch that way, 3/4 inch down one hole this way. And then we can actually go up 3/4 inch, one more hole right here on the upper. So I got some decisions to make. Randy's going to consult with Brian and Jason Brazel and see what they think. Definitely this one's not going to work. So we can do the math and then just move this one up. If we move this one up and don't move this one, then the instant center is going to come back and be shorter. So that'll be a problem. Going to have to run the numbers and see what needs to happen. So got some work to do, Randy. We didn't get much done tonight. I mean, we got some basics done. So like I said, Courtney come over and helped and hung out as well. So I'm about to head off. All right, guys, comment, like, and subscribe. See y'all later.